if you do the following things, you're going to generally have a very high quality of health, high quality of life. Depending on the person, you would make them more individualized, but this is the nodes. This is the things you want to shoot for. I have to be honest, I thought we were going to be able to talk the entire time about the Seahawks off-season moves, set up where we're going. That's what I thought you brought me.
Just wait, we're going there.
Hey, you beat our punchline.
We're going there.
You
beat us to the punchline.
Get started. Push the record, Dave. Let's do this.
Oh, it's been pushed.
Yeah, is it pushed? Are you? You're disgusting, man. You're like, I mean, David, are you ready?
We're
ready.
It's
Okay,
red, dude.
On today's episode of the Darren Woodson Show, we have Dr. Andy Galpin on the show. And I know Ben is just salivating over this conversation we're about to have. You too, Ty, because you've become Mr. CrossFit and hang cleaner,
I become a bro.
Mr. Snatcher.
I become a bro,
You become
Andy.
a bro. Okay, so let me give you who Dr. Andy Galpin is. He's a muscle physiology professor and scientist with a PhD in human bioenergetics.
How many of those words did you understand?
Not a single damn thing. I just know he has a ton of knowledge and a ton of information to give us today. First of all, I need to start off with this because you threw a little shot out there about your little funky ass Seahawks. So I get to start off with your Seahawks, right? So let's go back. How many years ago was this, Ty, when the game against the Super Bowl game, and they had the opportunity to just hand the ball off to.
That was 2000.
When was that?
No, that was
Andy. You would know.
That was
Andy.
2014. That was
Andy, I'm sure you didn't forget.
The Super Bowl game when we handed the ball off to Marshawn and he ran it in for 1 yard touchdown and we won back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah, that's the one.
that exact game and outcome. That one. That's right.
Revisited
Just
history.
the outcome just wasn't the
If
same.
you're wondering, it is still in my syllabi for all of my classes.
Yep.
About the back-to-back Super Bowls that the Seahawks won. Still to this day, I just don't say anything else besides that.
I don't have a championship, but I have the animosity to a singular moment when I was with the Cowboys, the Des Cottick game, right? So it had a very similar feel. Like
No, that was not similar.
Yes, it was. Because first of all, and here's Andy. So we have two things in common. One, I learned at the very beginning is that you are at Cal State Fullerton, which Lawrence Patrick Hill, my head coach in college, he's an alumni of. No big deal. But also,
this is the Tyler Klutz interview.
We are connected. We are connected in my third favorite football moment of my entire life. Okay. So I'm going to set the stage. So it's a beautiful 66-degree day in northern Washington, in Seattle, right on the Sound. The wind's just a light breeze coming off the water into the stadium there.
Fresno State.
No. This is Dallas.
Okay.
And the year is 2014. The defending Super Bowl champs are lined up on the other sideline. What transpires that day is an absolute ass whooping of the defending football champs. So I thank you for letting me experience that in your hometown against your team. They put up a decent fight in the first quarter, but thank you for giving me my third favorite football moment. So thanks, Andy.
Can I tell you an honest story? And I have told this many times on many podcasts, so you can go verify this.
Okay.
This is the God's honest truth. My favorite football story of all time that surpasses any of my own personal football glory. I was at a Seahawks game against a team. Let's see if you guys can remember this team. Darren, maybe you'll have maybe some memory here. And the game was close.
I know where he's going.
You have a quarterback driving
I know where he's
all the way
going.
down for an opposing team.
Hey, this is a cheap shot now.
This is, what? No, here's the best part of the story. I swear. Now, I may have had a few adult beverages along the way. And I'm in the stands, and the whole game, I've been telling everybody like within a 20-meter radius that don't worry, you can't trust a rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. They go all the way down, and everyone started looking at me like, oh, yeah, we're going to be fine now. They're going to kick a 15-yard field goal. We're going to lose the same game. I swear on everything. I yelled at everybody like, he's going to drop the snap. It's going to be fine. And I'm just screaming, he's going to drop the snap. Play happens. Of course, he drops the snap. Babineau comes, tackles him from behind, and I got poured so much beer on my head from 50 people all around. I was like,
dude.
I'll never forget that the rest
What
of
a
my life.
call.
Hey, you know what? Touche. Andy. That's fair.
No, that was low blow, man. That was all right.
Was that your
No, I was done. I was done by 2 years.
first year out?
Yeah.
Second year out.
Second year out.
Okay.
And, Tony dropped the ball, bro. Yeah, that was rough.
It was amazing.
How was that
It was
week?
amazing.
How was that week at ESPN?
I got blasted. Stephen A was on me in my face every single day. That was a rough week because I used to call me Tony, the defense attorney for Tony Romo. That's what they call me. And I was pumping him up, man. Like he had a great season.
Yeah.
Just got to that moment.
Yeah.
That moment.
All right. So again, we're here with Dr. Andy Galpin, and we want to hear how you got to the things that you're doing now, the innovation in human performance, and how the body works, right? And all of the things that our listeners and audience can learn from you. But before that, how did you get there? We talked about you growing up in the Northwest. Loving all the Seattle teams. We sense your passion through the screen. Wish we were here so Darren could put his hands on you. But take us back, man. Take us back growing up in the Northwest, what that was like, your football career. You were a good player yourself, played at the next level, but talk us through that process.
Yeah, well, I think the answer is pretty similar for most people in the area of sports science, which is, growing up, I was good enough in sports, but not too good. And that creates the perfect incentives, sorry, to where when I did things better, nutritionally and training, and even things like tape and watching film, it made a big difference in my game. And if I didn't, it was going to make a huge impact. So people who aren't good enough, it doesn't really matter because you're just never going to get there. And people like probably Darren, they're so good, like you're going to go and play college anyways. It wasn't going to matter, right? And so they don't always have the incentives to study every single little aspect, where I was in the middle. So I played everything growing up from a very, very small town. So we were able to play football and baseball and basketball and run track and field and all that growing up, and had a lot of success in those, both our teams and me personally. So then I was fortunate enough to go play very small Division III college football, which is about as high as I would have ever gotten. But still it mattered, right? So when I did things better there, I performed better. If I didn't, things were going to go downhill. So I don't know a time in my life, I can't remember anything ever where sports wasn't at the center of my piece. My family, the culture that I grew up in, I actually do have a little bit of love for Darren, to be honest, because, I grew up, I was a safety. And so like that whole area, you're my childhood, right? And safeties are what I always gravitated towards. Those are the people I wanted to watch, and even more so than corners because of the physical nature. Yeah. So that part of it I really, really appreciated. The area I grew up in was the same way, right? It was a very defense-oriented first. It was, we will be tougher, we will work harder. Mm-hmm. We can't always be more talented. That's something out of your control, but you can always outwork, you can always prepare more. So that's a position that resonated with me. So that whole generation of safeties through the mid-'80s to early 90s was, people like just relentlessly watched, just because an ethos as a position, that's where I resonated with more.
So did you play, at what age did you start playing sports? Were you like one of those 7-year-olds? Third grade?
Well, third grade tackle football for sure. Sports, I don't know, maybe 3, 4.
Mm-hmm. Well, youth soccer, right? Yeah,
100%. Yep. I did youth soccer first, and I have a brother who's a year older. And then the soccer thing didn't work out great because we would play on these little tiny 10 by 10 yard fields, and we would score 17 goals. Yeah. And it's just I was there, I'm like, okay, let's get the ball in. I'm just trying to execute as a 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. The other kids are picking flowers. So it's just, I'm like, this is stupid. These kids don't pay attention. They don't care. I want out. And so then it was all right, football, here you go. So we were playing tackle football as soon as I can remember. And the benefit of having an older brother was he had a ton of friends and a very large friend group. I didn't, which was awesome because I got to just do everything with them.
Right.
So I'm playing on their team, even aged up, right? I'm doing tackle football, all those things when I was and I was very small. So I had all those massive disadvantages, which was the greatest thing ever, right? So I got to be involved in sports and against competition that I never would have, because the kids at my level it wasn't enough for me. So it was fun to be able to compete against them. and those guys.
So was your mom and dad, were they involved in sports as well? Or, what was the family dynamic? Were you raised by both your mother and father?
Yep. Both my mom and dad, they got divorced when I was young, but they were very amicable. Mm-hmm. And it was a very, very positive, loving, supportive. We were not well off at all. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't say we were super, super poor. That's not fair. I mean, but I grew up on food stamps, free lunch. Like, that was a part of my life all growing up. So again, I don't want to make that seem like it was worse than it was, but we were far from any luxury. But the support, the love, the positivity was always there. And so that part to me, like, I never felt bad about being in two different homes or whatever. They were always on the same page in terms of sports. So my dad was a very good athlete growing up. My mom never got the opportunity. I don't know if she was or wasn't, but she just, a girl in the 70s, there just wasn't a lot of sport, in the 80s. So there was no chance there. But my dad was everything. My dad had tore his elbow his junior year of high school. So back then there was no Tommy John. So that kind of ended his career. And there was no real options for college unless, in the 70s, again, it was big time or nothing.
Right, yeah.
But that was a big part of sports were everything to us. So that was really a family culture. And then we were fortunate in the fact that the city that we were in was the same sort of thing. There wasn't much else. It was kind of like you took care of the animals in the morning, and you went to school and you played football, and then maybe if you go hunting after football practice is over on the weekend or something. But like that was the whole city, is agriculture and sports. And
sounds like a pretty good life.
Yeah.
I couldn't have been more fortunate.
That's awesome.
And most of the kids that I grew up with were pretty much in the same spot that I was. So everybody had the same struggles. Everybody was baling hay or, cleaning horse straw, whatever we were doing in the morning before school, a lot of times. Going to school, and then especially when we got to like middle school and high school, sports were taken very seriously. So it was a really nice support system where like that was just normal. So strength training wise, we had a coach who recognized the benefit of that stuff.
How old were you there, Andy? How old were you when this coach came on and you were introduced to strength training?
12, maybe. Okay. It was for the high school kids only, just for liability purposes, but he was the kind of guy, he's like, I'm never going to turn somebody down if they want to work harder.
When you had your older brother.
100%. He wasn't even quite there yet, but it was still like, they supported kids who, if you're going to go extra, it was on, let's go.
Yeah,
they were never going to be the barrier. So we just got into this stuff. We didn't have any idea what we were doing. But for me, it was such a clear, when I lifted this week, next week when I came back, I'm stronger. So it made complete sense in my head of going like, okay, like this, why would you not do this? I couldn't fathom, and to this day I can't. I have more empathy for it, but I still don't. It doesn't compute in my brain why you wouldn't do these things if your goal is to win more, be better. So I just didn't grow up with anything different.
Yeah, so that kind of answered my question. I was going to go down the line of when you had the realization that you did enjoy putting in the extra work behind the scenes, not just performance.
Yeah, man, I would love to take credit for that, but my dad worked in road construction his entire life. My grandpa worked in road construction. I actually got to work with them as a kid growing up too, right? So my brother as well. But everybody I grew up with, man, when I got to college, I'll put it this way, and I had kids like they couldn't throw a football. I'm like, you're a wide receiver in college and you can't punt. Like you've never changed your own tire. Like you don't know. I couldn't believe the complete lack of ability of these kids. I'm like, first of all, you're Division III, so like what are you really doing here, specializing as a slot receiver?
Yeah.
What the hell? Like, what are you doing here? But how do you not have these basic life skills? And I didn't realize at the time, growing up, that just everyone I grew around with had to do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just super normal for us. And we honestly looked down. We were always a substance over style. We would always look down on the flashy people that wore extra gloves and like all that stuff. We're just like, man, you guys don't get it. So I just carried that along. And I said, I'd love to take the work ethic and on the focus and say that was me. But when you grew up like that,
it's just the culture.
This is why it's such an advantage to have such a healthy family support system, because I literally didn't know anything different than outwork, right? And it was like, why? Because my dad's doing it. Like my mom's doing it. My grandpa did it. Like my sister's doing it. Like everybody I know is like the neighbor's doing it. I'm waking up and I see the neighbor's lights on in the barn. They're out there working already. Like no one knew we had to like go work hard. Or like I didn't have to hear these things verbally because that's what was happening around me.
Yeah.
And that's what people had to do to make sure they were fed and to make sure that they had shoes for basketball. They had to go work in the summer.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have new shoes for basketball season, like you better go bale hay. Like if you don't, then there was the teachers, like just no one put up with that kind of garbage of like, well, like it was totally okay to lose. It was totally okay to not have money or things or whatever. It was never okay to just be whiny.
Yeah.
Right. To not take control and accountability. Those are things that our whole community, probably too much so, honestly. But like you really got frowned upon around where I grew up for things like that. So
that's awesome. You mentioned you played multiple sports, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later on your opinion of singular focused youth athletes versus multi-sport athletes. But
yeah, terrible idea. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. All right, but talk us through the different sports you did play, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, whatever you did, and how those crossed over, and whether it's toughness, or cardio, or change of direction, lateral movements, or explosiveness, whatever it may be. Talk about how that helped you early in your career.
Yeah, so there's the direct athletic benefits that we can get into, and the science aspect of physical development, and what we call in the field long-term athletic development. So there's a tremendous amount of research and science behind that. And then you could certainly talk about just the indirect benefits. Just the things like when we played baseball, we still played baseball like football players. So you know what I mean? Like, it was about tough and about like we were so stoked if we got hit by a pitch. Like we would do anything to just lean into one, right?
Yeah.
Because we would do that and then just look at it and be like, what? Yeah. And there's you guys have played sports, that there's woo-woo there. There's magic of being able to take I took the hardest thing, like I loved it, and I sprinted to first base, and our whole dugout just was like, because it's beneficial to us. Like we got to run around base now, and it was also just that was the psychological aspect of what are you going to do here? Yeah. Basketball is the same thing, right? Like we're all a bunch of 5'8", 165-pound white dudes. Like we're not going to do tremendously well in basketball, but like we played it like that, right? So it was defense and rebounding, and like you better believe when the ball went up in the air, there was a whole lot of butts getting pushed into a whole lot of stomachs, right? Like, and there was elbows coming, and that's the only chance we had. Yeah. This is just the only chance. So everything we did, track and field was the same way. We just approached it like that, and it doesn't always work because talent matters, right?
Right. Yeah.
It does matter. Yes. But so psychologically, we feel like we always had that, and there was never like going on the road, fine. Pouring down monsoon, fine. Like you want to go and play in the Tacoma Dome, fine. Like none of that stuff ever mattered to us. In fact, we always took that as like let's go do it. Oh, you want to go to, because we were a small school. I know in Washington it was 2A, right, which is like one of the lowest size levels, and it goes all the way up at that time to 4A, sometimes 5A. We would always been like, we would have done anything to play a 4A team, anything, right? A 5A team, bring it. We would go to football camps in other states and be like, well, we want to play that California team. Let's go, let's bring it. So that stuff translates to life.
Yes.
So when it was getting a PhD, when it was getting a master's, when it was starting a laboratory on my own, whether it's to this day, right? Bad day, whatever it is, I'm like, let's go. And sometimes you lose. Like you can't always have that attitude.
That's
sometimes it's life wins. But when you have your first 20 years of your life set up like that, I'm like, and it comes through in my teaching. You can certainly see, you can ask my students, they're like, whoa. I'm like, no, man, like I will help you with anything, and I'll spend as many hours as you possibly want if it's in the right direction. If it's because you slept in or whatever, like, no, and there's no redos in my classes. There's no try agains. Like I go very clearly over the instructions. Any questions? No, boom. If you have any questions prior to deadlines, 100% I'm in. If not, it's in. Like this is a wrap, and you just have to have that accountability. It's the same way with my dogs and my babies. Like it's the same thing. And so that stuff carries through big time. And the nice part about sports, to wrap this part up, is it gives you immediate feedback on that. So if you didn't have accountability, you lost.
Right.
I love that.
I've been using this analogy honestly for years. So I'm not just saying this because you guys are football players, because I use this all the time in podcasts. But it's incredible to me, people who don't come from football backgrounds, because in a football game, or even in practice, right in between games, it's not only is it common, the absolute norm is to head back on the sidelines in between plays and directly look and be like, how'd that guy get outside? What happened? Right. And you have to be like, that was me. I read it wrong. Boom. Like, we have to figure out right now. We don't have, I can't send you an email. Like, like I have to look you right in the face and be like, how did that happen? Is our scheme wrong, or did we not execute? Like, we have to be able to diagnose that very quickly and very honestly. Scheme is wrong. Okay. Go, like, how we scheme this now? Or is it scheme is right, I screwed up? Like, we have got to have that accountability, and it has to not be personal, right? Like I say this it's crazy enough because in the world of MMA and the fighters I work with, this is not normal to the culture, right? So they want to like wait and kind of go behind people's backs like a lot of times. And I'm very direct like this, right? I'm like, you guys got to understand, if you're in the NFL, they're going to sit you down in front of your face and tell you, we don't believe you have a skill to be here. We're going to give you one more shot at it here, but we think you're gone. Whatever, like, you know exactly where you sit, and you don't have to be rude or crude, but people need to know. And then the same thing with the accountability piece and responsibility piece. Like why did that guy get outside? Oh, it wasn't me. I didn't understand. Okay, if you didn't understand, then it's my fault for not explaining. If you did, like, I don't really care. It's not personal. I don't dislike you. I could be in a screaming match with you right now in order to figure out what's going on. And then as soon as the next play goes, like, I'm not mad at you. We just needed to figure that out very quickly to understand, to move forward. So when it comes to science, when it comes to all these things, we have to have those conversations, and we have to be able to look people and say, in the face, like, you screwed that up, or did I screw up? What happened? Explain it to me. And they have to be able to say, yeah, like, I blew it. I can't cover that guy. We got to do something different scheme-wise, whatever the thing is. So yeah, it's not always easy. It's hard, but that's what has to happen to make progression and do things well. So.
Yeah. Right. And that's why I love hearing stories, because it's so clear, looking at your resume, it's so clear. I mean, that's just the culture you grew up in. You were going to scrap, you were going to fight, you were going to work. And that's what's led you to doing what you're doing now. So you get into high school, you're doing the sports. What were your goals? What did you think you wanted to do one day once you got to that level?
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew I was pretty realistic about the limitations of a 5'8", 165-pound guy that's pretty fast, but not that kind of fast, Everyone runs a 4.6 in high school, right?
For sure. 4.4. So we tell each other. It's the lies we tell. Yeah,
right. So, I mean, I knew I was the fastest guy around, but it still wasn't going to matter that much. So in high school, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to walk on to UW, and I'm probably going to get cut, but I want to just go through that experience. And if I don't make it, I'm done. And then a couple of years go by, and I was like, actually, I could go to one of these smaller schools and actually like play. Like, maybe that sounds a little more interesting. And, like, I know for sure now I'm going to get, I'm not going to get a chance to walk on. So that was my football goal. But I didn't know career-wise for a very long time where I was going to land. Even as a PhD student, I still really didn't, because here are the things I did know. I saw that there were people in the sports realm, and I didn't want to coach. I had tried those things at being a football coach and stuff, and I just realized that wasn't going to be it for me, as much as I could sit through and watch Peyton Manning detailed videos I could go to the X's all day and be just super happy. But it's just, for whatever reason, I wasn't going to be me for a long time. I knew I wanted something a little bit more, but I wanted to be involved in sports somehow. And I wanted to also learn more because the academics where I grew up with were very poor. I was literally on a tractor or in the weight room 3/4 of my senior year as a high school. So I made the women's softball field with the tractor. That was half of my day, and then I was in the weight room. And so I knew academically I was just way behind these folks. I just wanted more. So I didn't know what that was going to be. So I got my degree in exercise science at Linfield is where I played. And I played, and I knew I'm just going to run these couple of years out, just enjoy the process, play football. And I loved every second of practice. I was one of those kids that when everyone was complaining, oh, we have to go do practice, I'm like, guys, we're going to go play 7-on-7. This is the dopest thing ever.
We get to.
All right.
We would go play all of us kids. We would always do this. Even after we graduated high school, we get together and play, 5-on-5, 7-on-7, whatever. I'm like, we get to do this every day, and it's structured, and we get endless reps. And we get this is so fun. I loved every second of it for the most part. I didn't actually get along with hardly any teammates, basically none, but I loved every second of playing football. I just loved all that. So I knew something in that area had to keep going. I graduated, and I could tell a little bit more elaborate story, but I got the first kind of gig I got actually while I was still playing was at Adidas in Portland. So they were just kind of starting the corporate wellness thing, which is big companies starting to realize how important physical activity and exercise were for the health of their employees. And if we could actually put a gym in our building and or co-pay that somehow, then we'll actually save money on health insurance and things like that. 25 years later, that's well known and everyone does it. But this was really when this was getting going. So Adidas put one in. And so I ran up there and I was like, okay, I'll run your gym. And I had to be there to open the gym. I think that was like 5:30 in the morning. And it was probably an hour-long drive. And I was still playing college football. And I remember I grew up with my dad doing construction. And we lived actually, 90 plus miles from Seattle. So he would have to leave an hour and a half, 2 hours before work every single day to go to construction and drive home the same way. So like waking up at 3:30 in the morning to drive an hour to work was like just something I was like
expected.
Yeah. You do it, right? So I was driving up there, I was waking up, and then of course another lesson I learned from construction is, if you're 20 minutes early, you're probably going to get fired. Like they're gonna bring somebody else in because there's too much wiggle room with traffic. If you get caught in one little accident, all of a sudden you're late to work. The whole operation is waiting on one guy. Like this is now Gonski, right? So I was always a half an hour or more early, and I would sit there in the dark, nobody's there, etc. But I'm like, there's no way. Well, I was doing that, and what I started to realize was there was this group of like 3 or 4 or 5 people who were always showing up to the gym. I don't remember the exact time. We'll call it 5:30. But if the gym opened at 5:30, like 5:15, they're always there. They're waiting. And I was like, I'll just start showing up earlier. I don't know who these people are, but like they want to train. Let's go. I'll get them in. So I started showing up earlier, and then they got really excited. So there's this little core of people that were showing up. And I wasn't supposed to be personal training them, but I'd go down there and work with them, take them through stuff because there's nobody else around. It's dark outside. And I'd just work with them. Well, it turns out like 3 of those 6 people worked at the smoothie shop on campus or something, right? But the other 3 were on the executive board. I didn't know one from the other. I'm just like, yeah, you're all getting whatever, blah, blah, blah. I probably figured, if I'm being honest, like, there's a good chance here somebody is kind of important. So, like to be candid. But no matter what, like, I'm just going to go after them, right? Like, they're all going to get 100% Andy, whatever I got. And I'm just going to get rolling. Well, it didn't take very long before they're like, hey, we actually have a partner in Arizona at a place called Athletes Performance.
Yeah.
And this was with Mark Verstegen. So they sent me down there. And so I went down and worked with Mark for 6 months. And this is 2004, something like that. And, I had NFL guys immediately and Major League Baseball guys immediately started going there. And I just realized, I'm like, okay, I did that for half a year. And I knew strength and conditioning wasn't going to be my jam either. I loved it. I love sport coaching a little bit. I couldn't do it full time. Love strength conditioning. Couldn't do it full time.
Well, and what was the reason? What was the reason that you couldn't do it full time?
Yeah, 2 things. Number one, I couldn't. Okay, at the time the paycheck was 0.
Right.
But that's another part. Like I literally had no money, so I would leave my house in the morning, Mark's house that I got to stay at for free, and I would just find as many orange trees along the way and just grab oranges, have the leftover protein shakes, whatever the guys weren't drinking didn't have it. Like that was half my diet easy.
Oh wow.
I didn't care though. I'm like, whatever. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I remember the first day I walked in, and I'm 21 years old, 22 years old, and I've never met anybody famous in my life. And I don't even know anybody who'd ever met anybody famous. And the first day I walk in, I see Kurt Schilling. I'm like, oh my God.
Holy smokes.
Right. And it's just like, now it turns out he was like my least favorite guy ever to work with, but like, neither here nor there, right? Like, and then I come in the door and it's just got like, all these guys I end up working with that were top draft picks, played in the majors for 10 years, Andre Ethier and Vernon Davis, and like these guys, like, I'm like, this is really, really dope. But I couldn't handle like you guys can see sort of my passion.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle working with guys that didn't have that same passion.
Yeah. And at that time, look, I don't mean to cut you off, but at that time, Athletes Performance was like the mecca of training. right there across the street from Arizona State University.
Yes, sir.
Like you said, orange trees all over the place. The party scene was happening. So there was a lot to do, and you weren't in love. You weren't in love with what you were doing at that time.
No, man, I wanted to be, and I wanted to be there, right? And I wanted to go in and do the thing. Like the same thing, I was getting there. I'll show up an hour early before it's supposed to open. Like, what do you want? And nobody's there. All right, guys, hey, you're supposed to be in at 11. It's 11:40. You're just rolling in. Like, well, what sessions? Like, we had too many guys. Sorry, you're up. Oh, don't get trained today? No. Cool. All right, I'll go back to the crib. I'm like, what? You're getting drafted. The combine's a month away, and you're like a projected 5th round, 6th round, 7th round draft pick. What are you? Like, you got a chance to be a millionaire, or work with me in construction next week. Like, what are you doing? I couldn't handle that. I could not handle it. I just knew quickly, I'm going to lose my soul. Yeah. I'm just going to, because my heart is going to be too far into this and they're not going to match it or be close.
Yeah.
I can't handle that. The second thing was, I felt like those guys at that level intellectually, it was easy for me. It was way too simple because they didn't want to come up and like really understand things, right? They just wanted to like take me through my warm up. Like, okay, well, we've been doing this warm up for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I coach you up on a little bit of it, but if you don't understand it by now, I get really detailed and I'm really precise with movement stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Like, I just felt like I'm going to run the same, like, and then the next 6 weeks it'll be over and over and over. And I was like, mentally, I can't. It would be enough. So those were the two things. But I still loved, like, you can see, like, part of me loved it.
Yeah.
But the bigger part of me was like, you can't do this for forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, too, as you guys know, strength conditioning money, like, you might get $20K a year.
Yeah.
Now, it's a whole different thing.
Right.
It's a real career. But prior to that, it was like, man, I don't know about that. So I knew there was more there academically. So I went back and got my master's degree. And I still didn't know, even going on my PhD, I was like, man, but here's what I do know. Like, I feel like I had a pretty good grip of the strength and conditioning stuff at a decent level. I know pretty good amount about actual sport, tactical stuff and stuff, at least what it's kind of like to go through playing college football. You get a somewhat of a sense, right? It's not the same thing as these Power 5 schools. It's certainly not the same thing as NFL, but you get some concept of where it's going. And I was like, you know what though? Like, what I don't understand is the cellular and molecular side. Why are these adaptations happening? Why is this training program more effective than the other one? I know you're telling me it is, and I believe it, but like, something has to be happening. There has to be a cause. And if I could take this background in strength conditioning that a lot of people have, get the molecular background that a lot of people have, I'd be one of the few guys in the world that have them both. And that was the plan. So when I finished my PhD, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I had a niche there where I had a combination of understandings, areas that, like, you were going to be hard pressed to find somebody who did. And I was able to basically market myself for a job and saying, like, this is my vision for what I think a human performance laboratory could be. And no one really had those abilities. No one had the ability to go in and take a muscle sample from an athlete and take it into a chemistry lab, put it underneath a $100,000 microscope, and then also teach them how to squat.
Right.
Right.
All right.
Like, I can take your stool sample, we can take your blood, we can take your urine, we can do this stuff, and we can make really, really incredible changes in people in a number of weeks by just figuring out, like, this food is out this way, add this, boom. Really safe, third-party certified supplements, really all, small changes, and you just see these miraculous improvements in performance by just bringing an actual science to that side of human performance. So that's how I kind of got here.
Yeah. So you mentioned in high school that, education was not on the forefront of either your agenda or your mind. How was it?
Let me tell you about my first semester in college, by the way.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see. What was that like, transitioning into college where academics were actually a part of your routine? And
keep in mind, the small private schools, academically, they're not a joke. Keep in mind too, even in high school, I think I had a 3.4 GPA. So even in a school where I was doing nothing but weight.
Hold on.
Stop.
You said you were a bad student. You had a 3.4.
Come on, man. You need to stop.
I got a 3.4 because I was on a tractor and in the weight room.
Those were his classes.
I'm not taking AP science.
Still though, my 2.1 is not feeling so good right now. Just kidding.
I think I finished college with like a 3.1 or something, right? Mm-hmm. Which is barely enough to get into grad schools. And actually under the qualifications for most, I had to kind of work hard to get around to get in those things. But no, I remember the first, I have these vivid memories of sitting in these big lecture halls for the basic anatomy class. And you're just going over, this tendon and ligament and where it inserts and attaches and what it does, the name of all of it. And I'm just like I'm loving every second of it. And I'm writing it all down. I just remember looking over and all the kids are like, like this. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, we just did this last semester in high school. I was like, what? You had anatomy in high school?
How do you know this?
We had physical science my freshman year. And then after that, it was football and breaks. What in the world? And I knew, I was like, all right, I'm in trouble. So I don't know anybody, even the guys, I had a best friend in college that I'm still very close with. We lived together. We took almost every class together. We played football together. We still work together. We're partners in a bunch of stuff. And he was very, very, very smart. Mm-hmm. I'm not being humble here. He was just intellectually far more capable than I was. And I remember he would study for 3 hours and I'd be like, all right, we finish. And then I'd be like, all right, I got to do another hour. And then I'd still get an 85% on the test and he'd get a 93. Mm. I just knew. And if I looked around at the other teammates, I'm like, they're studying for 30 minutes, right? And they're just getting through because most of the kids there, you don't go to Linfield because you're going to play in the NFL, though we had several that did. You go there because they're probably very smart. Right. So I was most definitely below average with those kids. And so I just had to really, really work hard. So I never worked harder. I never spent more time, more hours in a week than I did in college. And you know what it takes to play college football alone.
Right. Yeah.
And we weren't even, we were much less than that, but the academics, taking chemistry and physics and all that for someone with no background, the only thing I knew was just work harder.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just spend more time. That's just the only way.
So did it feel like hard work though at the time, or was it something you were just so interested in? You were just like, I just love it. I can't get enough of it.
100%. That's 100% what it was, right? Of course I would have rather gone and watched the Seahawks game on Sunday, but Sundays we'll wake up, eat a giant breakfast, take all your stuff to the library, and we just didn't leave till it closed. Yeah. That's how we spent every single Sunday for 4 years. I can count on my single hand, the number of college classes I missed my entire college career. Wow. Right? There was no way I was going to skip class. I didn't have any room for error, right?
Yeah.
So, but why? I mean, talk to us why. What was the passion? I mean, for you personally, why were you so intrigued by the human body?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. It's the human body, one, but then it's also the no one in my family had gone to college. Mm-hmm. Kind of really, right? And I was like, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna drop the ball here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lose this opportunity.
Yeah, my brother was playing college football at the same time for another school, but Eastern Oregon, so it was kind of a junky academic. And I'm like, man, I took on all this money in loans, all this stuff,
So you had something on the line too. It wasn't just oh, hey, I just want to be successful and I'm driven by success. It's no, I got something on the line. I got something to prove here. I've got family that I've got to prove I can complete this to. I've got financial loans that I've taken out on this. I've got to make this work.
And you can see it in your face. You can see it in your face all these years later, just how much that meant to you, man.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But then it was also the love of it too was fun. Oh, okay, that's why when I do this exercise, it feels this way, right? That's why when I eat this, I feel this way. So there was an interest because it has, the nice part about exercise science is it's a direct feel. Mm-hmm. So it's not like chemistry where it is if I eat this, I'm going to feel this way when I perform. That's why when I ate that halftime, I felt terrible, right?
Yeah.
Or felt great or whatever it is. So it's, there's direct translation there, but then there was the other stuff, which is the real foundation, right? Mm-hmm. Which is I can't even really get into it. I'm still too emotional about it, right? Mm-hmm. But it's all right, I'm going to be here and I'm going to, all you other people that came from some advantages and stuff, cool. But let me show you. Right. And So honestly, it didn't matter what class it was, like love or hate the class. Like it wasn't going to matter to me.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to get out of there without everything.
So you talked about getting into strength training early. So before you got the formal education that you started really in college, were you just that technician in the weight room and just diligent? I mean, did you love physically lifting weights, or did you love the understanding of it?
The physical part for sure.
Okay.
I'm not super operations based, so I don't have a notebook that goes back to when I was 12 of all the lifts and stuff I've done. That's not my skill set. I'm more of a creative.
Okay.
Right? So those types of things. For that, in that phase of my life, lifting was the physical. Okay. It was, okay, like I can literally see this muscle now that I couldn't see last week. Now when I do a vertical jump, now it's 25 inches, now it's 27 inches, now it's 29, like, and the numbers just keep going up, right? So it's clearly working. The physical nature of it was again, something I identified with because it feels incredible, right? The rush, all that, the performance is addicting. That part of it I loved. We had no guidance whatsoever about what we were doing. I didn't have access. There was no internet, like literally no internet, right? People say that, but I'm like, no, not like I had a cell phone. Like literally it didn't exist. Right? Like there wasn't a thing called the internet. You couldn't go to, like we didn't have a library at school. And there was no library in our area that I could go to that had anything like this. So it was just, all right, maybe my dad would pick up like some sort of muscle development magazine and there'd be a workout in there. But I would just write it down on a note card, put it on the wall, and I would just do that, right? Just do it. And then eventually in high school, we had kind of a program that my coach got from probably Bigger, Faster, Stronger.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And probably had that he bought or something and got at a clinic, and we all just did that. But by the time I was probably a senior, then there was a lot of experimentation. And there was a lot of, okay, I understand the thing here. And I remember when I was doing like sets of 10, okay, cool. When we started doing sets of 3, I felt this, okay, so I wonder if here, and there was a lot of questioning and a lot of understanding there. And then a lot of manipulation. Like what happens when I added more sets to here? Like, well, that turned out terrible. Okay, this is probably why. Started experimenting with all kinds of stuff, bands and chains and balls, like just all kinds of other things because I had an idea of what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
But I didn't know what was going on. So
you innately had this like scientific method already in your head. Like, all right, like I'm going to see what this does and I'm going to try it out and I'm going to test it and I'm going to see what the results are. And then I'm going to retest it and I'm going to change this. And I mean, you were already wired that way as a kid. Yeah,
I'd say just a little bit. Like again, we don't come from a science background.
Right.
Asked my parents to outline the scientific method.
But without even knowing that you were doing it, right? You already operated that way.
I think honestly, like you could call it a scientific background, but I think it's just basic problem solving. And the culture that I come up with, you know, if you're out in the field and the fence is broken, you better figure it out right now because the cows are going to get out. Right. And you can't try. So it's just problem solving and going, okay, like I pulled that didn't work. All right, like pull this, like what's going to happen? Like you better think through how the thing is working very quickly as best you can. And then rather than just trying to cover up a symptom. Because if you do that and the fence gets up and then it's not in there sound and a cow hits it, like now we have problems, right? So you have to be able to think through the process and how things work. And I don't have an engineering mind, that stuff doesn't sit naturally to me. So I just had to spend more time thinking, which is why I found, I think, kind of a niche in my career, which is rather than knowing things, I'm better at the thinking through things side.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you decide, okay, I'm going to go to my master's. I'm enjoying the process of learning, enjoying the process of studying. You go do your internship, but then you decide, hey, I'm going to go back to get my master's and your doctorate. Talk us through what doctorate was like compared to, you know, your undergrad.
Well, so as a doctoral student, instead of playing football, I was fighting, which was amazing, right? So jiu-jitsu and MMA and all those things were now a part of my life because I could play those.
I will take us back to that first. Then. How you got into to the MMA jiu-jitsu side. Yeah,
so the whole transition, football is over. I had taught myself how to, what we would call Olympic weightlifting, right? Weightlifting, the name of the sport. As a college football player, even as a high school student, I started to try to figure out how to snatch and taught all those things to myself. And then when I started my master's in Memphis, I was like, I'm going to start training and competing in Olympic weightlifting competitions. And I had some other friends that were interested in the same thing, so we started doing that. By the time after my first year of my master's student, my friend was like, hey, we should start a gym. We should start one of these CrossFit gyms. And CrossFit was very new at the time, and I didn't like, and I still don't really care for CrossFit, quote unquote. But it was like, okay, a gym where we can have weights and kettlebells and dumbbells, and we don't have to have machines and treadmills, and people will show up with barbells. Like, let's do it. And this was pretty early in CrossFit space. So we started CrossFit in Memphis. And that allowed us to do the type of training we wanted to do. And at the time, our first clients were the local fighters. So there was a Memphis Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of really talented fighters out of there. So they started coming over. By the time I had finished and I knew I was going to leave to go do my PhD, one of the guys was like, hey, I just finished national championships in weightlifting. And I had like 6 weeks before I was going to leave. And he was like, if you want to come over and try jiu-jitsu, you're welcome to. And we're going to charge you whatever because all the training that you've done for us, Gesher. And like anyone who's ever done jiu-jitsu, so it's like the first time you try it, you're like, oh. And I get it. Like, I didn't come from karate background. No one I knew ever did karate or like wrestling. I never did wrestling or anything. So I don't come from combat or any martial arts. But immediately that made sense. Jiu-jitsu made complete sense to me. I loved every second of it. So then when I moved on to my PhD, I was like, I felt like I'd had a pretty good success in weightlifting very quickly as well. And it just wasn't like, I don't know, like I didn't feel a lot of, it's snatch, clean, jerk like every day. It wasn't super complicated physiologically. It wasn't, the movements are hard, but it's not difficult intellectually to figure out. MMA was different. MMA, I'm like, man, okay, how do we balance the tactical and the technical learning? Learning all these skills. How do we balance the strength, the speed, the power, the endurance? Now I got to do this for 25 minutes. It's a very different, and even relative to football, football is easy physiologically.
Yeah.
It's very simple to figure out how to train someone and how you prepare types of conditioning you need based on positions. It's very simple scientifically. MMA is insanely complicated. And I realized that immediately. I'm like, man, this is really, so now I have that other niche, right? Which is, it's fun, but I don't know how to do this science-wise. The other ones I knew, right? I knew basically how to do those things. And no one, I looked around, there was no one that understood the science and the physiology of MMA. So I just loved it. So I started training with those folks and started doing all that stuff for my PhD, which was nerve-wracking because, you sort of pronounced the words earlier at the beginning of the show, Darren. It's human bioenergetics, right? What that means is I have a pipette in my hand a lot of times. In fact, you can see these videos. I've got some up for free. We would take muscle biopsies from people. So we'd go into your leg and take a chunk of your muscle out. And then with a needle, I would go in and pull one muscle fiber out at a time. And I would do this thousands and thousands of times, isolating one single muscle cell, putting it somewhere and running some sort of study on it. Well, that's really difficult to do if you just broken your hand fighting, or like you get kicked in the elbow.
Right.
So I was terrified every day because I'm like, if I can't have extreme dexterity in my fingers, I can't do my job. Like, I'm going to be probably thrown out of my PhD program.
You're showing up with black eyes and and mangled fingers. Yeah.
Hey guys, hope you were enjoying the first half of our conversation with Dr. Andy Galpin. Before we get into the meat of the episode where he gives us great tips on longevity and performance throughout our lives, we did want to thank our sponsor, Choctaw Casino and Resort, and remind you they are doing a $1.2 million grand giveaway every single Saturday, the month of September. You can play with your rewards card to earn entries for drawings and a share of the $1.2 million. Make Choctaw Casino and Resort your home away from home, and fingers crossed, reap the rewards as well. Also, we're going to remind you guys that coming up this weekend on the 24th, we've got Vince Neil of Motley Crue with special guest Steven Adler of Guns N' Roses performing on the 24th. And then on the 25th, the great Sam Hunt will be performing. So go get your tickets. Checked out Choctaw Casino and Resort. Now back to the episode.
I broke my rib one time, and it was like doing a really intense period of data collection. And we were doing this simple drill in training, and my rib just popped, and I was like, oh no. And I had torn my calf before too, but I was just like, well, whatever. I could kind of hobble around, and you're mostly sitting on a bench top when you're doing chemistry stuff, so it's not a big deal. But with a broken rib, I was like, oh boy. So like I show up my spot the next day, and I'm like, you're folded way over, and you're just like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't breathe. Yeah.
and I'm just trying to hide it, right? I'm like working away. I'm like, just trying to breathe as quietly as possible, and it takes them about 16 minutes for me to be like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, good." And if you guys ever broken a rib or cracked one, like
Everything hurts. You can't do
It
anything.
sucks.
You can't do anything.
that one set me back for a little bit, but
Oh man.
yeah, so that's how I got into it. It's just because it was intellectually different, and it goes honestly back to the conversation where everyone I was training with and everyone I saw, they loved it more than I did. And I knew that if I want to work with these guys, they'll match me. They'll match me energy-wise, they'll match me soul-wise, they'll match me heart-wise. And I don't have to worry about a crybaby who doesn't want to show up to training because it's not in his contract.
Right.
I just didn't have to worry about that. So it handled the curiosity side, the science side, and the other part, which is important to me. So that's how I sort of launched into that career.
So, what was your thesis? What was the focus of your thesis?
So you don't want to even know the answer to that question.
Okay, all right.
It's basically I developed a new chemical method to measure signaling proteins on individual muscle cells. So
I dare you to find a follow-up question to that.
Did it work?
it did, yeah. So it was very, very chemistry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Molecular biology.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You mentioned earlier you wanted to be one of the only ones in the world that could combine how to with the molecular side. So and then you mentioned kind of what you're doing. So walk us through what you are doing now before we get into, the practical things that people can take away.
Yeah. So when I showed up here at Fullerton, I basically pitched this idea, right? This is the new type of strength and conditioning science, if you will. So here I run what's called our Center for Sport Performance. So within that center, we've got a bunch of laboratories that all study anything that could enhance human performance. So we've got biomechanics. So this is movement, right? And joint angles and forces and velocities, stuff like that. Your classic exercise physiology. So your VO2 max and your body composition, supplementation.
Now, are you
Which
doing
muscles
with regular people, like athletes and the general pop, or just athletes specifically?
We don't study disease or disease prevention or anything like that. We study only things that will enhance human performance. So some of it is with athletes. Some of it is, with our general student population, but it's always something to understand what would enhance performance.
Gotcha.
Sometimes we just need bodies.
Yeah.
We've got strength and conditioning stuff. We've got my molecular muscle physiology stuff. So we've got a bunch of labs. And the idea is to try to understand human performance scientifically from a holistic perspective. So instead of just isolating, how you jump or what to eat, it's how are these things affecting each other? And then we put that out there. So that's part one of my job. Part two of my job is I teach at the graduate level strength and conditioning, sports nutrition, program design, which is how to put these strength and conditioning programs together so that it lays on top of each other across the season, across the year, across a developmental model. So taking a rookie and making sure that they're optimized by the time they're going to get that second contract, like things like that, right? And then part three is I work personally with a number of professional athletes. So this is kind of its own thing. If you want to get in more specifically what we do, but it's very, very high touch. Human performance optimization, if you will. So it's everything from maximizing the recovery, extreme diagnostic on their sleep, their training protocols, tracking metrics daily. Like I mentioned, hair analysis, stool analysis, blood analysis to make sure that physiologically that they are completely optimized. Removal of any toxins, molds, like things like that we can do. So I work with a small number at a very high level there. And I've got a couple of examples. In about 3 weeks, I've got 2 individuals fighting for a UFC title.
Wow. So how much time are
Fighting
they putting
each other?
in?
No, they're not. They're one of them's co-main event.
Okay.
One's the other main event. So I started with both of these individuals 3 years ago, coming off of losses. So bad parts of their career. And Lauren Murphy is one of them. She's now won 5 fights in a row, and she's fighting for a world title. And Brian Ortega is coming off a loss as well. Changed his life around. Now he's fighting for a world championship. I've done the same thing with baseball players, taking guys from 5.5, 6 ERAs to winning Cy Youngs. Like, things like that.
So how much time? What's the commitment for these athletes? Just for Brian Ortega. I mean, what does his schedule look like on a weekly basis?
Yeah. We make sure that one of the things that I do is we make sure that the system is executable. Mm-hmm. So that answer differs depending on the person, depending on their responsibilities and their aptitudes. Right. So the program for Major League Baseball guy is completely different than Brian Ortega's because of demands, because of personalities, because of their support systems. What they have, do you have a private chef? Do you make your own meals? Do you travel to training? Is training in your house? Like all these little things determine. But basically, I will tell him pretty much exactly what to do. I tell him literally what time to wake up. And then from then, everything is given to him. How much water, what he takes, when he eats his meals, the type of meditation he does, when he gets soft tissue work, what he does for training, his recovery stuff, the weight check-in, what he eats, how that's measured, how that's delivered to him.
Holy smokes.
What we track, the metrics, if I'm tracking, what am I seeing? What are we doing different? Like literally everything under the umbrella that an athlete could use. My job is to try to help them understand which do you need to worry about right now, which do you don't. Because there's endless things, right?
For sure.
And how do we decide what to put in your system so that you're not feeling like just every 5 seconds you're doing something else? You feel free, you feel fine. I'm getting all the stuff I need, and it's as painless as possible. And we filter out the things that aren't making the hugest impact or that we need. In a fight camp for a world title fight, it's a little bit more than usual because we got to make sure everything is really optimized. But for like the baseball players, it's a lot lower because we've got now
length of schedule.
We're playing for a couple of months from now.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you work with guys? I've always been curious about MLB players during the season. Do you work with guys during the season as well? What their strength and conditioning program looks like?
But the only way that this works is year round.
Okay. So what is?
I mean, of course, you take a week off or 2 weeks off or
Right.
vacation. But yeah, no, we in season, out of season, in fight camp, in between fight camp. Those are the times when we really can make progress because we can run little experiments.
Yeah. So
we
like
can do this and do that and say like, hey, can we? Let's optimize your sleep. Okay, let's run this experiment here. Let's do this for 2 weeks. Let's do this one for 2 weeks. Oh, okay, this is much better. And we can get things like that dialed in. We can, again, run some of these analytics, the samples and get things back from the lab and say, okay, actually, we need to tweak this little thing here. And all of a sudden, boom, testosterone goes up 50%. Okay, those are very, very common things we see happening when we can just find little things to do. Or I can give you guys 1,000 examples of the craziness we've seen with athletes by just figuring out and by taking the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
You can keep guessing. Like most people will do pretty well. The average person, I could give you what I call the 90%, which is like the 90% of things 90% of people will have to do to feel amazing. But the athletes, that doesn't work anymore. Like we want to figure out like, that one thing that worked amazing for most people actually is, it's actually taking you backwards.
Right.
And we could just take the guesswork out. So that's really what we do.
Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just curious about MLB players during the season because their schedule is so crazy. I mean, they're traveling so much.
It is, but here's the thing. I can look right now on my calendar and I know exactly when they're going to be the whole season. I know what time you're going to play 3 months from now, basically, right? So we build, it's honestly, and teams have systems, right? So I already know if you play a 1 o'clock game on a Thursday and you're going to travel that night because you got to, like, I already know what the travel schedule is basically going to be like, right? I know when they want you there to take BP or when your bullpens are, if you're a pitcher, like we already know the bulk of this stuff. So we would create jet lag plans. We create what time do you go to bed? What do you take? If you take anything or not, what other situation, what do we need to fly out? All this stuff just gets handled. So we have systems. And even for the pitchers, are you on your 5-day rotation? Players, what are you doing? It's not, MMA is more difficult because we don't know when you're going to fight.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? I know every football game. I know where Russell Wilson's going to be. I don't work with Russell ever. But, I know where everyone's going to be. I know what the system is. And a lot of the folks, when you get to that level, like little spoiler alert for you guys that haven't been behind the scenes with pro sports, like a lot of you guys get to do whatever you want.
Right.
Like you guys can pull some cards sometimes. So we can say, hey, we're not doing this practice this time because, not because you're a prima donna, but because like, hey, look at the sleep numbers we've tracked. And when he wakes up at 8 o'clock to do this 8 a.m. work, this is what's happening the next day when he throws. So we're going to skip these ones on the road and these situations because like the numbers show very clearly, his velo on his fastball is down a mile an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's so crazy is that this is so dialed in. And I remember when I was playing with the Cowboys back when Methuselah was walking around. But anyway,
he just always beats me to the joke.
We didn't. I have to, because if I don't, they'll murder me here. But we would eat whatever it is. Like for lunch, they would just bring out fried chicken an hour before you went out to practice, or whatever it was. You know, you'd eat big pasta meals or burgers or whatnot. And I remember it was about my year 7 or 8 that I couldn't do it. Like I knew my body well enough this made me feel so bad by eating this way. So I used to always have to bring my lunch or bring my meal because I just couldn't eat it. Right. Mm-hmm. So I guess, I'm looking at this thinking, how dialed in does that athlete have to be? Because this takes, it's the discipline for you as far as giving the knowledge, but there's so many things that an athlete has to deal with before practice, after practice, family dynamics, getting on the road, travel. There's got to be a complete communication line between the two. So how do you guys do it? Is it an app? Is it a call? How are you communicating with the athletes?
It depends on the person. So one of the first things that I try to figure out is we'll call the soft side of the science. Mm-hmm. So them as a person, are they a high detail person? I'll put it this way. So I call people cooks or bakers. So you all, I'm sure, have made your own meals, but you guys know the difference between cooking and baking?
No.
Okay. So baking is chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to bake a bread or something, you can't just be like, all right, I'm just going to throw some flour in there, a little bit of baking soda, some eggs. No, let's just see what. Like you cannot bake that way, right?
Yeah.
The ingredients have to be very specific. The timing has to be correct. They can't be mixed with hot when they're supposed to be mixed with cold. The temperature in the oven has to be exact, or you get nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cooking is the antithesis of that. It is put the pan on the stove, put some oil in it, throw some protein in, whatever else is in the fridge, hit it with hot sauce, hit it with cheese, good to go.
Good to go. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So I identify those personality traits in the individual. So in other words, some people, if I give them just say nutrition, and I say pre-practice, I want you to eat this. And I tell them I want 6 ounces of almonds, 3 ounces of salmon, 2 ounces of rice, blah, blah, blah. Some people are like, awesome. I have a plan. I can have my chef make that. My wife will make that. Whatever the case is, they'll send it to me. I'll tell the team. The team will make that for me. I know exactly what to do. And they have a sense of relief because they have a specific plan. Mm-hmm. Cool. Other folks, that gives them anxiety because they're like, I don't have like 6 hours. Like sometimes I don't like salmon. Like I don't. So the people that like all the detail are bakers. The people that can't handle that much detail are cooks. If you give a cook precision, they get anxiety because it's too controlled.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you give a baker just rough guidelines, they get anxiety because it's not specific. They don't know exactly what to do.
Right.
So that's one of the first things I'm trying to figure out is how does your system work? Do you have an assistant? Do you have spouse? Like, does a team, like, we go through all of these things. We try to figure out, again, I'll have to put you in a system that's executable because without that, none of the science matters.
Yeah.
Then there may be a little bit of, okay, like you got to get a little bit tighter here if you want to get what you want to get. I can't like literally put the food in your mouth for you, right?
Right.
But for the most part, we try to figure out a system. And because there is so much going on and there's so much other things, we have to figure out, okay, maybe this second set of meditation we're doing in the evenings is helpful, but it's causing you a giant pain in the butt and blah, blah, blah. We're just going to take it out. Mm-hmm. And that's the fine line we play of going, okay, let's make sure, is it 2 things you can handle? Is it 15 things? I have some players that will track 50 metrics every day. They spend an hour and a half every morning running a bunch of metrics. Other folks, if I could just get them to weigh in, like that's a win.
Yeah.
How much do you weigh today? Or how did you sleep? Cool. Yeah. So identifying how they're going to work and then only giving them, just like on a football team, only give them the responsibility that they have a reasonable chance to accomplish it. Not that's my fault.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a bad coach.
Put them in a
but then the communication line, it depends. Some of them, it's funny enough, some of them, the vast majority of my communication is through Instagram DMs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's how I hate it. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
That's how they communicate. Yeah. Others, it's literally it's going to be a phone call every time. They won't send a text or whatever. It's only a phone call. Some of them it's different ways. A lot of them it's texting all day, right? Bing, 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 bing. Especially the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Until like we get things ironed out and we start to figure out, because I need a lot of feedback. How was your digestion day? Did we get that problem go away? You still have heartburn? Well, okay. How was your energy? Did you still have that crash in the afternoon? Did you wake up groggy? How was it? Okay, great. And so we'll kind of shift our priorities based on things we're looking at over the course of time. But the way that I operate with these few individuals, it's what system do we need to do to get you there?
Yeah, right. So, sorry. You mentioned a handful of times in a handful of different ways, but how much are you addressing the psychological recovery, training, all those things, the assessment? Because you mentioned, okay, hey, are they baker, cooker? We've got to understand kind of their mentality here. You mentioned meditation, right? Like the overall benefits of meditation and all that on the psyche. How much of that are you evaluating and working on in your program?
So I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist or even a sports psychologist. So one thing that I do have is a decent amount of EQ. So like I can see and I'm fairly perceptive to things. So when it comes to somebody who I actually think needs a true psychologist, I always ask for outsource. Right. So I will ask them, and I have several, even in our department here, outstanding sports psychologists, or if they need an actual therapist. These are very different things, right? Some people don't realize the difference between a sports psychologist and a therapist. Those are there. But what I try to figure out is when I'm running this, I'll call this complete diagnostic of human performance. If I'm running through the stuff on our side and I'm like, hey, physiology looks outstanding, performance is great here, but we're still not executing in games. Now it's pretty clear to me that, like, I think that now this is not a physiology thing. This is now a therapy or a sports psychology thing. So then I can just simply say, hey, look at our numbers over here.
Yeah.
You look pretty good. Like this is now an upstairs issue.
Okay.
There's some things we can try, certainly, in a host of things, but others where I'm like, you need actual training here. Like you seem to struggle when it comes to focus. So sports psychologists are excellent at helping you learn to focus, whatever the case may be, right? But my entire goal is to figure out, again, what are these small number of things we can do that make the most impact.
Right.
And if that's one of them, we can explore that area. Some folks, I'm like, no, you have a parasitic infection in your stomach, right? This is why you're not sleeping. It's because we know that the role that this plays in development of melatonin and serotonin, or you've got a vitamin or mineral deficiency. That's why you're feeling lethargic. And that's why you're feeling depressed, is because we've actually looked at your metrics and your numbers, and your dopamine's down here and whatever, right? So sometimes it's a physiological root cause, and sometimes it's not. And this is the benefit of having testing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a custom approach. There is no, to stick with the theme, there's no cookie cutter about this. You are taking every single individual factor, and you're putting that into your blender, and you're giving them the best program. I did want to have one question. So Darren, Tyler, and I are all parents of young kids, and we understand the importance of strength training, and they're all into sports. But the question we get all the time is when's the good time? What does science say about kids getting into strength training? What does that say about that?
Yeah, we can talk as much as you all want about the long-term athletic development stuff. But the quick answer to that is you can start them as early as they have the cognitive ability to focus. So movement quality is paramount, right? This is actually sort of a question you asked earlier that I never truly answered, but yes, all through development, even up through high school, the primary focus should be moving well. Right? Learning to, the easy trope is this: learn to walk, learn to throw, learn to jump. Right? That's starting off number one. Learn to squat, learn to press, learn to pull. By pull, like a deadlift hinge kind of thing, right? Learn to snatch, learn to clean and jerk after that. And that's just a really easy way to think about athletic development. So if a kid can't properly jump, they shouldn't be snatching, probably. They don't know the basic mechanics of running. They're probably not motor control ready to do, a bunch of complicated things like a clean and jerk. And I love those movements. But that's the basic idea. So going back to your actual question, the science is going to suggest that they have the ability to focus and understand when you teach them proper hinging, then it's good for them. If not, then give them another 6 months, give them another year. Right? If they're squirrely and they won't pay attention and you tell, all right, press, and they get into really bad positions, don't. But physically, it's not only okay, it's actually extremely beneficial to physical development for kids who start strength training as soon as possible. You're not going super heavy. You're not maximizing strength. You're not trying to get them stronger. And I will emphasize this, even through high school. You shouldn't be trying to necessarily maximize strength.
Really? Even through high school?
No, you can still use strength. You can still go heavy. All those are true. But the goal is to not maximize strength, because puberty is going to do most of that work for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I was literally going to make a joke. I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me what Karen told me, that squats are going to stunt your growth, is not true?
I mean, we have so much, honestly, it's so annoying. We have so much science.
Yeah.
And it's not even like, well, it's mixed and you're on one side. It's all.
Yeah.
It's all. And you can Google for parents out there if you want. The NSCA, so National Strength and Conditioning Association, they have what are called position statements, which is all the scientists in the area of strength training for kids kind of get together and say, collectively, what do we agree on? And they put it out in these free papers. So they're not behind a paywall. You don't have to be a scientist to get them. So if you just Google their position stand on strength training in youth, you'll get not only all the science behind this, but then you'll get the actual recommendations. What exercises, how many reps, how many sets, how heavy, how much rest. It's all laid out completely free. And those guidelines for power development, for strength development, for hypertrophy, which is muscle growth, NSCA position statements, and several others. And the science is very, very clear. Again, it does not stunt growth. It does the opposite. It generally enhances growth. It is, again, not bad for bone. It's typically showed to be beneficial for bone quality, almost always. But this lays under the assumption that you're moving them, that they're moving well, that they're under supervision. And the single biggest factor with injury in young kids with either strength training or even things like plyometrics or sport is volume. So if you've got your 8-year-old in soccer and then also going to volleyball at night, and then you have them with the personal strength coach 3 times a week and then a speed coach on the weekends, well,
inevitably,
you know where that's going to go.
Yeah, true.
So just keep a mindful eye on volume. Be reasonable with volume. And the sort of sneaky back part about volume is where volume gets people is in repetition over movement. So what I'm saying is, if you have a kid doing the exact same thing, now you're going to have problems because you're doing the same movement and the same movement pattern over and over and over and over and over. You could do that same total volume if you did it with 2 different types of movements, and you'd be just fine.
Hence the multi-sport.
Yeah, I was going to say that speaks to what we were talking about earlier, the multi-sport.
This is exactly why, one of the many reasons why being a multi-sport athlete is so beneficial for kid development. And again, the science is super clear. This is not even like it's really, really established. We don't even honestly study it much anymore because we've known the answers so clearly. To keep your kids, to reduce their likelihood of injury and overuse, and more specifically, so they're not broken when they're 20.
Right.
Gosh, yes.
Like, you don't want to be 22 and your knee doesn't work.
Yeah.
Your shoulder's all junked up and you had surgery and it still doesn't feel right. I mean, some of that's going to happen.
What'd you say about me? What'd you say about my shoulder?
What'd you say I was broken?
Yeah, you said the science community knows this, but we can name 5 people in our head right now who've got their kid in baseball from January through December, year after year after year, and that's all they do. So the science community knows this, but the general population hasn't caught up to that yet. And that's the message we need to spread.
And why would you say, what are the reasonings behind, and you see it, I'm sure, and I'm sure you have conversations with parents, whether it's on social media or whatever. No,
I don't have conversations with parents.
You're super lucky.
We'll have the conversation
for you. We'll have it for you.
We're having a
You can imagine somebody having a conversation with a parent is these high school and even really these select leagues, right, where it's really specific. And, hey, this is how you get into college, and this is how you progress. I mean, what would be your encouragement to some of these parents that are going up against this? Like, I'm a parent that I totally believe in multi-sport athletes. Like, I think it's imperative. Obviously, the science agrees with me because I'm super smart, right? And so, but when you're in a community that's like, hey, look, if you're not on the team in third grade, you're not playing tackle football in third grade, and you're not training and doing this, and you're only doing this sport, you can't play baseball, you can't play track, you can't do track, you can't wrestle, you can't do these other sports because your focus is here, or you have zero chance of playing.
Yeah. So I can answer this in a whole bunch of ways. Number one, you guys ever heard of anyone in the NFL ever changing positions once they got into the NFL?
Yes. Yeah, well, I'm sitting next to one right here.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, point number one, like you're an outfielder. Really? Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because when you go to high school, maybe all of a sudden you're a catcher.
Yeah.
And then when you go to junior college and when you actually play AA baseball, maybe they put you at second base. And in fact, who's more likely to make a big league team? The guys in the bubble, guess what happens? If you can only play linebacker and you're on the bubble, but somebody else can play linebacker, can maybe take a couple things in slot, can do special teams, can be a punt, that guy's going to get a job. So simply from pragmatic perspective, your likelihood of playing more sports longer goes up the more things you can do.
Yes, true.
If all you know how to do is be a first baseman and you're 12, now you're a liability. Because if you're not the best first baseman, we only get to play with one.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point.
Your liability, right? So in general, the way that I think about this is you can either drive specificity, or another way to think about that is sensitivity, or you can drive resilience. And both of these are important, right? So you want to be sensitive to some things and resilient against other things. Sensitivity in this case, if you did nothing but play first base your entire career, from the time you're 5 on, you would be hypersensitive to different ways the ball bounces off the ground, the angles the ball comes, and you would develop a tremendous amount of specificity and sensitivity to that position, which means your skill acquisition in that area is high. Very good. You have compromised any chance of resiliency, though. If they have to put you in at third base, you have no chance.
Right.
Like you're in a big problem. If you played a little bit of every position, now your resiliency against anything is super high. You're not as great maybe at catching the balls at first base as someone else who only does that, but you can do a lot of different things. So you're more resilient to change. And the same thing happens with physiology. The same thing happens with motor development. So if I give you the exact same task and all you do is practice this physical task, right? Whatever it happens to be, you'll get very good at that, but that won't cross over to anything else. If I give you a whole host, say 6 or 7 or 8 different things to learn physically, you will learn that one thing at almost the exact same rate. And you will learn all these other things because you're learning general motor development and motor control. So a kid who's still learning how to run and learning how to jump and learning how to throw, the more variation and types of throwing and types of running and running with a different kind of shoe on and running with a different kind of equipment on their back and running with a different thing on their head or not on their head or in a different field or in a court versus the rate of learning of running enhances because now the stimulation is really, really high. So the progression isn't as fast, but it's more well-rounded. And because of that, it's more resilient as I get later in life.
Right.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Can you come speak? Can you come speak in North Dallas, please? I would love for all these high school coaches and athletic directors to hear you.
So here's what you're going to see: the kids that specialize early are certainly going to be the teams who make the AAU 15 and under squads, right? Let's see what happens when they're 22.
Yeah. So true.
Who's going to make the college team?
So true, man.
Yeah, I think that's the confusing thing. You know, the principle of specificity. You think, okay, the more I do something, the better I'm going to get at that thing. And so the more I play baseball, the better I'm going to get at baseball if that's my goal. But you just shattered that myth, right? Actually learning multiple things is going to still benefit you just as well.
But I love that you learn a singular movement just as fast while multi-training in different,
Yeah, and if you look at, you ask the motor control, motor development folks, that they're going to generally say is variation enhances motor learning. Right? Rather than things. So specificity wins in the short game. But it doesn't win the long game.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and you see it every day. I mean, you see it every day. I've my son played in select baseball around the country, and that's all they did all year round.
Yeah.
And then you see them get into that 17, 18-year-old range, and the kids that were playing AA baseball or rec baseball and playing basketball, now they're the ones who are on the bump. And 17, 18-year-olds getting a major college, degree. Scholarships. I want to switch this a little bit because these two are young guys. I'm one of the elder statesmen here. Speak to our audience that, once you get to that 40-some-year-old range where, Tyler, you're about to get to, that you start, the body's not the same. Like, you're not playing specific sports. You're just trying to be more flexible, or you're trying to have a better quality of life, right? Speak to that individual. What are some of the things that they should be doing for maybe it's bone density or trying to, as far as movement is concerned?
Okay, you're going to love/hate this answer. The way that I approach science and the way that I approach coaching is the human body is the human body. And the old Bill Bowerman quote is my favorite here, right? Whether you are an athlete or not, right? If you have a body, you're an athlete. So the way that I think the 40-year-old folks should approach is the exact same way the professional athletes should. Exact same. With, of course, you're not going to take as many risks, right? You're not going to make it as much of a focus of your whole life. It's not your primary job. But the categories are the exact same. The approach should be the exact same. And I can verify this because we have done studies with 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds. We've done them with 90-plus-year-olds. And physiology doesn't change that much. It goes down, of course. The aging is a real thing. And so I'm not saying aging is fake. But even at the age of 40, it really shouldn't change that much. And the approach should be basically the same thing. So you have to have some sort of strategy for stress management. You have to have some sort of strategy for sleep. You have to have some sort of strategy for hydration, some for nutrition, some for physical movement. You have to have some for relationships. You have to have some for the physical environment. And you have to have whatever else lands in your emotional life, right? If it isn't in one of those other categories. If you don't have some acknowledgement of all those pieces, I don't care if you're 60, 20, doesn't matter. You're either going to leave things on the table or you're going to have huge holes and fall apart. That's being a human is human. What you choose to do with your physical abilities is up to you. If you want to use those physical abilities to run your $15 million company better, you want to use those physical abilities to be a better mother, you want to use those abilities to try to make a baseball team, I don't really care. You use those however you want. But the same things are required for physical performance.
Yeah. So, this is interesting because I think now we're talking, whether you're 40, 50, 60, 70, or 30, right? Let's move away from the professional athlete just into, also just general population. You talked about tracking and the importance of tracking progress. And you talked about how do you do it with your pro athletes? What kind of, do you use wearable technology? Is it GPS? Is there some out there that you're like, okay, hey, those are actually good that I would recommend? Because again, not everybody can work with you. So if somebody out in the general population is like, hey, what's a good step to start tracking recovery, tracking nutrition, tracking my movement? And then getting onto, okay, now a plan going forward.
Yeah. So I hate wearable technologies for the most part.
Okay.
I actually have a book on this specific topic for how to use and not misuse all training related technologies. So you can see more there if you want. The general answer though is I don't think they help people. And I have seen, oftentimes we've seen this in the literature, they tend to hurt people.
Interesting.
So if it's helping you, awesome. Keep rolling. If you feel like it's neutral, or you feel like, I think this is putting me in a negative spot, then you got to ditch it. And a very easy example there is many studies have shown the folks that get something like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch where it tracks their steps per day or activity. For some individuals, that is a huge, huge benefit for weight loss. Others, it actually is negative because it's a daily reminder of failure. Some people handle reminders of failure well. I personally do. Right? I actually get like super motivating. I love it. That's not because I'm better or healthier or smarter.
Yeah.
It's just my personality, right? Like I love it because I see it as an opportunity. Like, yes, something to go after, right? And this will make an improvement. Others, it's just like, I'm trying my ass off here. I got kids and this, and like, I'm trying to do better. And it's just telling me I failed against it. And they just ditch it, right? And then they end up having worse. In fact, a lot of cases they'll gain more weight with the watch on than they would have before. So you have to be very, very careful with giving blanket recommendations of things like this. But I think maybe, if you guys don't mind, maybe I could sort of outline these major nodes that I think everyone should go after.
Yeah, that's great.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So the way that I do this, you guys heard me earlier about the accountability piece. So I use what I call a quad system. So this is a little note card that I would make, and I recommend you make. And I mean you at home listening. And you take this quad and you put this in a place that's private for you, your laptop, something that you're going to see every day. And then you put it somewhere else, the same thing, where whoever that other person who is accountable to you or you are to them. This could be your family. It's on the kitchen table or the refrigerator or something, right? And on this card, you get to divide it up into 4 quads. So quad 1 is training. This is all things exercise. Quad 2 is recovery. Quad 3 is financial, family, or financial business, whatever stuff falls into the categories there. Quad 4 is family. You could change these quads if you want. You could add things. And whatever those topics mean to you, they mean to you. It's just your thing. And you get 10 points. And you get to decide how you're going to spend your 10 points across those 4 quads. And we make a plan. I typically like to make a plan for a quarter. It's just 3 months, something like that. You can do whatever, 6 weeks. You could do 6 years. I don't really care. But let's just say you made a 3-month plan. And we said, okay. And we sat down and we had a very candid conversation and said, okay, you got 10 points to spend across these 4 areas. How do you want to allocate them? And if you're sitting there saying, okay, I feel like crap. I just don't feel good every day. My energy's down. I'm not sleeping well. I think I'm not exercising very often. I just need to start exercising and eating better. Okay. So how many of 10 do you want to put under, we'll call it training. We'll just call training and eating all one bucket. I'm going to do 4. Okay. So 4 of our 10 are in training. That means we've got 6 left. Where do you want to put them? Okay. Well, I'll do 3. My family's important, so I'll go 3. Okay. And I got to keep my business going too, so I'll go 3 there. And I know I need to recover, so I'll put 3 there. Well, I don't know if you guys just did math there, but that's like 16. It happens every time. Because it's very hard to look down the face of your family or your business and say, I'm going to give you less time and energy. But hours have to come from somewhere, right? So this is how people fail when they set these plans, is they go, I'm just going to give more. And we have to allocate resources differently. So we're going to go, okay, 4 for training. All right, well, you can't do more than a 2-to-1 ratio from training to recovery. So if you're going to do 4 in training, we have to do a minimum of 2 in recovery. Because if we just work, and we do intervals and CrossFit and everything, you're going to burn if we don't put any money in recovery. It's not going to be sustainable. So if we're going to go 4 there, we're going to go 2. So that's 6 total. 4 training, 2 recovery. Now we've got 4 left. 2 in family, 2 in business. Okay, fine. Now, you have just told me you're willing to spend double the amount of energy and time on working out that you are with your family. Sometimes that is the right answer. Sometimes you have to take your health as a priority. And I'm using a kind of a woman example here because, my wife is with our little, like we had to have these conversations. So I'm like, honey, you have to make you more of a priority right now because you made the kids a priority for 4 years and they're babies and getting through that stuff. Now, like we have to flip the attention back. What is it? Do we have to spend more? Do I need to work less? What do I have to do? Do I have to get rid of an athlete? What do we have to do? Because we simply can't expect you to make any physical changes unless we give more resources to it. And that's not just meaning money. It typically means attention and time.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the energy to work out, we have to do something less so we get to bed earlier.
Right. We
have to create something. I got to do something. I got to start later. I got to watch. Like, what do we have to do? And so you have to be able to look people and you go through these things, you're like, yeah, right now, like I have to get my physical health under control. It's going to get a 4. And my recovery is going to be a 2. So right now I'm just not going to, I'm going to keep working, but business is now a secondary priority because if I don't do this now, it doesn't matter what business I have.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And then this changes. And then here's the key piece of this is why you have to have it in front of yourself. So you have a daily reminder. So when that extra business call comes in, when that extra podcast, you have to be able to be like,
I can do it.
Like, this is a good opportunity for me. This would really help. We could maybe make a few $100 here. But I didn't train yesterday because I took that call yesterday. I got to get my workout in today. Like, I'm eating out again at the restaurant because I didn't have enough time to make food with. Nope. Like, something has to go.
Right.
And then you got to have it in front of that person who holds you accountable, whether it's your coach or your family, and they can look at it and go, hey, look, the plan was to do 4 workouts this week. You got in 1. Why? Well, kids got sick. Okay, cool. So then did you work less? No. So then you chose now work over training again. Wrong priority here. Like you when to make decisions because life happens, right? It's what we call the what ifs. So the plan is great, but then what if is what? Okay, well, what ifs pop up 100%. And things like kids are always going to jump to top priority, right? Fine. But then you have to understand, do I give up this or do I give up this? Well, the same thing with recovery. You got your workouts in, you did your business stuff. Did you get any soft tissue work? No. Did you do any meditation? No. Did you have any alone time? Whatever it is that helps you recover. Did you get 6 hours to go veg out and watch TV? Whatever that you need to reset. No, you didn't. Okay, well, like, what are we going to take away then? Like, because we can't train as much this week because we know you're going to run into a hole here if you're not balancing the recovery stuff. So it gives you very specific accountability. So once you set the framework for all that up, now we work backwards and we say, okay, what do we need to do sleep-wise? Are you feeling rested, recovered? Is it a sleep time issue? Yeah, I just stay up till midnight working. Okay, fine. This is an easy fix. We just work stops at 9. Okay. Or you have enough hours of sleep, but you're still not feeling refreshed. Okay, now let's do some diagnostics into stress management. Is it a stress management issue or is it a quality of sleep issue? Now maybe we bring in some blood tests. Maybe we run a little sleep study on you, something like that, right? Maybe you buy an Oura ring and just track your total number of sleep hours, which that's effective at. Or you just fill out a thing every morning. What time did I go to sleep last night? What time did I stop working? How do I feel today? So these can be zero cost, right? They can be totally techless things, but you want to do something, right? Maybe I want to invest $125 a month in hiring a dietitian to help me with my diet. Maybe I'm going to pay the money to hire the personal trainer.
Right.
I can't really afford it, but this is a priority, right? So now I'm not going to buy that other thing right now. And this is not indefinite, but this is for this quarter, this is what we're going to do or whatever. So we walk them back off of that. So in general, here's what this lands. You've got to have at least 9 hours in bed per night.
Wow.
Right. So this is attempting to sleep time. You're not going to fall asleep, but that's the general number. If you land in that 9, just the numbers we've seen, you have a shot. If you don't have 9 hours in bed, you have very little shot of getting enough sleep.
So you're saying in bed, not actual sleep, but just in bed.
In bed, trying to sleep.
All right.
Not watching TV.
Correct. Phone is not with you.
Phone, no phone. Okay. All right. We had this conversation earlier today.
You're out.
So what that typically looks like for most people, I recommend is 10 hours. At hour 10, get into bed, right? Or get the pre-bed routine, whatever it happens to be. And then you can answer, like, I honestly don't think technology is that big a deal right before bed. Unless it's a big stressor. Like if you're a work person and you're working and you're getting anxiety. But for most people, I'm like, if you want to scroll Instagram, you want to watch like Netflix or you want to watch a YouTube thing, like if it's a joy, it's not gonna hurt most people.
Yeah.
But you just want to 10 hours from when you're going to wake up. You want to start that process.
Okay.
Then you shower and do other stuff. Maybe we have a breath work routine. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't do that stuff. Maybe it's hydration. We do other things. And by like 9 hours between the time you want to wake up, like you're starting to really finish up the conversation with the spouse. Yep, right. Your to-do list for tomorrow. Whatever your routine is, go through your head like, yeah, we're good. Kids sleep, dogs. Boom. So by the time it is 8 hours, you can start to shut the eyes with, I have a plan for tomorrow. Everything is wrapped. Like, I feel good. Had a good day. I got 30 minutes of downtime. This is a big problem is 8 hours before they wake up, they just stop. Well, now you need to downregulate. And you're not going to downregulate for a long time. So this is why I say 9, because it sometimes takes an hour to truly downregulate, to feel like, okay, I caught my breath here a little bit. Let me go through my checklist. Yep. Oh crap, I forgot that. Let me go downstairs, get that thing. Yep. Okay, cool. Yep, let me get back to that guy. Got to do that thing. And if you do that, honestly, by the time you get to 8, you're more likely to be able to be like, okay, like the things because it's that stuff that keeps people awake.
Right.
Good night. Right. It's I forgot to do this. I got to get back to this. Okay, just get back.
Yeah.
But this process starts 9 hours. Finish that up, and then when it's 8, you feel like, okay, good. Like boom. Now eyes are closed.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's me again, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, man, he's got a sexy voice. And 2, you're probably thinking, why is he interrupting this discussion with Dr. Andy Galpin again? We've already heard the Choctaw ad read. Well, we have some exciting news to announce. We have a new sponsor for the podcast. That's right. We have partnered with Sleep Number. The official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys is now the official sleep and wellness partner of the Darren Woodson Show. And in all seriousness, we could not be any more excited about this. This is something we've looked forward to for a long time coming. Have a lot of awesome content planned for you guys in the way of wellness and sleep. In the meantime, head on over to sleepnumber.com to check out their products and get involved, and watch for more announcements and more to come on our new partnership. Again, super excited about this. Thank you guys so much for your support. It's because of you guys that these partnerships are possible, and we appreciate you. So now back to the episode. Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great strategy. As we begin to wrap up here, I did want no.
I'm not even close to finishing. So
Shut up, Ben.
Continue.
This is my show.
I need to hit the
Apologies.
big stuff.
Yeah.
I just got to sleep. I'll go through faster the other ones that you guys got stuff to do. But
No, not at all. That wasn't.
No, yeah, that wasn't meant to cut you off at all. Sorry, I thought you were done.
maybe Darren, you and I could talk afterwards. Maybe we can make some changes.
Yeah, I know. Already made the changes. They're already gone.
He didn't like me. He didn't like me after
Ben's
that.
out.
He didn't like me after that Seahawks comment.
yeah.
So I was expecting that. I thought you were going to get to it earlier, to be honest with you.
Okay, so waking up. Bam, we're awake. Hydration is important. The typical number we say is half an ounce per pound of body weight. Okay, I don't track things like that, but if you wanted to have a rough idea, so if you weigh 200 pounds, that's 100 ounces of water throughout the day.
Right.
Okay.
100 ounces. Okay.
Most people, they're not going to track their water. I don't think you really need to, but if you just start the day and the first couple of hours, you just try to basically chug a ton of water, and then just try to keep a water. So I will always keep water visual and make it appealing. So if you don't have a water bottle in front of you, you won't drink water. If it's there, you're more likely to take a sip. If you put a little bit of flavor in it, you're more likely. So just take a cucumber or throw a strawberry. Just grab a strawberry, throw it in your water bottle. It'll get that like hotel water flavor. You know? Like it just takes no time whatsoever. You're more likely to drink it with some flavor in it. So do that. You know the number, but just try to stay more diligent about the fluid intake. From there, the 90% of food. Typically, people do a little bit better when they eat more often, but it's not always the case. Some folks are just fine. So frequency of food, I don't really care about too much for non-athletes. It's not a huge deal. Some people thrive on different systems. This is okay. What you need to have, though, is a plan. And I don't mean your meals have to be pre-prepped necessarily or planned, but you need to have a conceptual framework of where you're trying to go, so that you don't have breakfast one day and then the next day you don't, and then the next day that kind of inconsistency creates havoc and problems. You do not have to have the same thing every day or planned out. You just have to have an idea of, number one, where's my protein coming from? And you want to have protein at every feeding. That can be from animal. It can be from plant-based protein. I don't care. But the first thing in your brain is, where's my protein? Second thing in your brain is, where are my vegetables? Right? And if you handle those two things, everything else pretty much works itself out.
Okay.
There is a mostly fresh whole food as often as you can. You want of course, fresh fruits, but fresh, whole, real foods. If you handle your protein, handle your vegetables, whatever else goes on your plate, it's fine for the most part. So those are like the big rocks. You want to have a lot of variety of colors in your food. So you want all of the purples and yellows and greens and oranges. All that stuff is great. If you want to get way more detailed about nutrition, you certainly can. But those are the very big things. Fresh food, be somewhat consistent with your eating routine. Try not to get into big swings of hunger, which tends to be problematic. Control your stimulants. So people will see very large responses when they get off gallons of stimulants a day. You'll feel a lot better. Caffeine is okay, but it needs to be used diligently. I'll put it this way. The fastest way that I improve people's sleep quality is almost always reduction of caffeine. Or caffeine-related stimulants. Energy drinks, things like that. No offense to anybody drinking an energy drink.
I just had one today.
Tyler's notorious for his energy drinks.
It's not a good strategy. It really isn't.
I think the term is addict. I think that's what you're looking for.
You're better off going with teas and herbs and coffees and things like that. It's fine. One a day is not going to kill you, but if it's, I'll put it this way. If you feel like you have to have caffeine in the morning to not be a jerk, that's a very strong physiological sign.
Okay.
Really?
Not a good thing.
Whoops.
I'm there. Been there for the last year.
If you're the whole, like, don't talk to me until my first cup of coffee sort of thing, like,
cut down.
Remember earlier?
No wonder you're such a dick, Darren. Your physiology's all off.
Remember earlier when we were talking about resilient versus sensitive?
Yeah.
You've lost resiliency. You're way sensitive now. Like if you don't have this fix, you can't function without that process.
And this is just that just happened to me too over the last year. Actually during COVID, during COVID, I won't function anymore without having a cup of coffee.
Yeah. So you need to reset that process.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And can your body reset with, it's not like, okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Caffeine is very transient in that way where you can be able to develop tolerances and insensitivities very quickly.
Okay.
Very quickly. So if you were to do 7 days, you'd probably, see a pretty big thing. You can do this one of two ways. You can rip the Band-Aid off or you can titrate. So you can do something like, all right, I'll start with 3/4 caf. So kind of mix a little bit of decaf in there. So you won't even notice the difference, right? And then slowly work your way to half caf, something like that. And then maybe slow your way to, okay, I'll have it, but not for the first 2 hours of the day. So I'll get through my morning routine, I'll get up, I'll get working, and then 2 hours in the day, then I'll actually go for some caffeine and get a sort of. So there's different ways you can do it depending on your personality trait.
Right.
I prefer to just rip it off.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's up to you. The other thing was we'd go back and we'd figure out why. Right. So sometimes it's just because you just had too much caffeine early in the morning and you just gradually built that up and now you sort of have this tolerance. But other times it's things like, we see this pretty consistently with people who take supplements for sleep. You tend to be very, very, very groggy in the morning.
Yep.
And so you feel like you need more caffeine. So you have more caffeine throughout the day. That makes your sleep quality worse. So then you have more sleep cocktails. And you feel groggy and you end up in this cycle. We actually just had some blood work come back from a really high level guy recently whose melatonin levels in his blood were 100 times the upper limit. Not double, 100
times.
So he was walking around sedated all day. Basically, he was smashing caffeine like every 2 hours. More caffeine, more caffeine, more caffeine.
Jeez.
Then, of course, you don't fall asleep at night. So what do?
Melatonin. Yeah.
Bingo, right? And he was just a mess.
Boy.
And the host of downstream problems with testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, he was a wreck because of this. So I'm like, stop. You got to stop the 5 milligrams.
Man, that's interesting.
And you got to get off this stuff. So we see that, honestly, that was extreme. But we see that problem very commonly with people who just prophylactically take sleep things. There's no free passes in physiology. So anytime you start taking a supplement, that might be safe, quote unquote, that doesn't mean it's not making your system worse. So it's not going to cause you a disease or kidney problems or anything, but it could be making you feel worse because you don't understand the true downstream effects.
So you mentioned supplements, though. Are there, you're walking us through, basics of nutrition and, okay, hey, what are the benchmarks that you really need to focus on? But on supplementation, are there recommendations that you have in a general aspect to say, okay, hey, look, if you are none?
No, because once you understand the consequences, it's very hard to do those in good faith. Give you general recommendations in good faith. I know it's kind of
general recommendations. Okay, it's case by case.
Yeah, with one exception, probably like a general multivitamin.
Okay.
It's probably just fine.
Okay.
If you get things from food, you're fine. Anything taken in the concentrations and the combinations you'll find in food, you're almost always fine.
Okay.
But you start taking things that have been pharmacologically developed at really high concentrations in forms, types, and in combinations that I don't want to say not natural because that doesn't really matter, but that you wouldn't find in foods, you're running a little bit of risk here. Now, many supplements are not very risky. Things like vitamin D, very low risk. Very, very low risk. You're probably just fine. Vitamin C, if you're taking very small amounts of these things, they're transient. You're going to pee out any vitamin C you don't take, 500 milligrams. These are not risky, but But even the things like the vitamin D, we've seen this a number of times from folks. If you don't get these from high quality sources, you could be having up to 1 million times the actual amount of vitamin D in the pill that it does in the bottle. And so we've seen this very commonly. You think you're taking 1,000 IUs and really you're taking more like 1 million IUs a day. So the supplement stuff is, I wouldn't call it dangerous, but I'd say like, if you're not feeling great, you got to really know who you're buying from.
Yeah.
It needs to be a third party. Any supplement that is what we call third party certified, your risk is a lot lower.
Okay.
There's a lot of third party certifications. And if you're just looking for supplements and you Google that, you'll see NSF, informed choice. There's a whole host of these things. And your risk goes down exponentially when you get something that's there. Now, just because a supplement isn't third-party certified doesn't mean it's bad. I know a lot of companies that I think make excellent things that they don't have certification. So there's no guarantee there, but it hedges your bets, right? If you're buying things from really small companies and you're buying it and it looks like it's half the price, like there's probably a reason there, right? So quality control is lower, accidents are higher in the factory, just things like that. So my general answer is food first. Lifestyle first. If you think you have a vitamin D problem, get more sunlight. These are the better answers. If you want general recommendation, that's where I tell people to start. Now, if you think your problem has become more advanced, then you need to seek out somebody, maybe get some diagnostics before you start taking the stuff. But for the most part, if you do these big things I'm talking about, 85% of people, you're going to feel a lot better. Right? If there's some stress management strategy, whatever this could be, if there's some exercise, physical activity practice, if there's some semblance of high quality nutrition, if you have control of your sleep, the vast majority of people, the magnitude of effect is so much higher than the magnitude of effect of supplementation. And now you're also cutting out that whole risk. So it doesn't make any sense for me to give people a general supplement recommendation when I could say like, it's why waste the money on things that are free, that are more effective, that are the starting places. I mean, there's certainly a list of 6 or 8 supplements that I'll use very commonly, like I share with you, but I really don't like that because it just tends to make people spend money and they're emphasizing the wrong things. So I'm not going to give you a magnesium supplement if you aren't showing me you're working out 3 days a week.
Right. After asking that question and hearing your answer, I apologize. That was a stupid question, and I feel really dumb.
I'll take that apology in written form, please.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll start drafting that now. But that really does make sense, and that's really important, I think, for everyone to hear is look, just because your buddy says that, you know, he's taking all these things and he says, take this. That is not that is not right for you. Every person is case by case. And really, as you're creating a plan for your health, whatever, talk to somebody that is educated, that can scientifically back up their recommendations. And you hear from one of the leading experts globally, if not the leading expert globally. Look, I can't even give you the best 3 things. Okay, hey, like a protein supplement or this or that. No, it's specific to you, and there are better ways to do it, but you have to actually dig into it.
Yeah. So my recommendation is to go one of 2 directions. So direction 1 is don't do any testing, don't do any purchasing of these things, and try to fix things with lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that enough. I know it's the answer that everyone's like, skip, like, fast forward 5 seconds. What's the next thing? Right?
Right.
Yeah, we're looking for the quick fix, but what you just said is sustainable.
With all the athletes I've worked with all the years, those factors still are the starting places.
Right.
Yeah.
I will not hand a single supplement to an athlete for months.
Mm-hmm.
Months. Like, and 6 weeks would be the earliest, because until we figure out all the other stuff,
Right.
I'm not playing this game at all.
Yeah.
We don't do this. And if they don't make those changes, then I'm like, peace.
Yeah.
I'll get you. Like, we're not interested in the same thing, because that's how powerful these things are.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much to talk about. Like, you know, I want to go down the road of inflammation at some point.
Yeah.
And you know, I know we're going to run out of time here, but what I want to do is I want you to ask your question last, Ben, and that's coming up here. But one of the last questions I had was, tell us a quick story of someone that you've seen go from, you know, point A to Z and have seen a miraculous recovery in some of the steps that they took to get there.
Geez. Man.
Where to begin?
Yeah. Maybe, I mean, it depends on depends on what area you want to get to.
It doesn't matter. You know, it could be just just general pop, or it could be an athlete.
Well, we've seen like, okay, so here's some good examples, I guess, is, we have tripled people's testosterone in a matter of probably 8 to 10 weeks with no supplementation, no hormones at all. Yeah, and we've done that like more than a few times.
Wow.
So I obviously can't give you names here.
Right.
Sure.
It just I almost don't want to say this, so let me do a little bit of a preface. But this is not normal, and this is not like, oh, if everyone does this, you're going to have the same thing.
Right.
Okay. But the gut microbiome is very important, and we're learning much more about the microbiome, oxidative stress, inflammation, all these things. And so some of the things that are very clear in these examples, if you have a bacterial overgrowth in your gut, if you've got opportunistic bacteria, if you've got parasites or other things going on, you could be totally asymptomatic, which means you think you're fine. And there have been plenty of cases where we've run, the full spectrum of hair, blood, stool, all this stuff. And we've come back and we've seen things like, actually Dallas, this has happened in Dallas. Everything looked fantastic, but we found this individual was very sensitive to a specific type of wood in his neighborhood. And once we basically installed some different filters, not crazy filters in his house to get that stuff out of there, his testosterone doubled.
Wow.
Just from being sensitive to the woods that were in his Dallas.
What?
Wow.
That's amazing.
Again, that's not not common.
Sure.
We've seen the similar things with mold. We've seen similar things with food sensitivities. So I've had some athletes that get crazy high. My wife, actually, bless her heart, like avocados are a massive inflammatory marker.
Huh.
She doesn't feel anything. She doesn't feel different, but it shoots her oxidative stress numbers through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to just remove things. So there's simple things like that, and that can really elevate a number of things, but testosterone is the one that people will, they'll be able to grab onto that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The tripling of it, though, we have seen certain things like the parasitic infections. You get those things cleared up, and what happens is they regulate nutrient absorption. So food is part what you eat, but then also what of that food that you eat is actually absorbed. And if you have problems with the part of your body that's trying to digest and break down the nutrients so you can actually absorb them into tissue, then you have limitations there. So we see commonly things like B6 and B12 are very low. And you start going like, why is your B6 low? You're eating a lot of foods that have enough B6 and B12. So it's coming in, but it's not getting the system. There's a lot of reasons it could be. But in some of the examples I'm thinking of right now, in this case, he had a couple of parasitic infection, one parasitic infection, a couple of bacterial overgrowths in the stomach. Got those cleared up. Those ones we actually know have a relationship with vitamin B6 and B12 absorption. So those things shot up. Why those are important is they regulate the conversion of tryptophan to serotonin. Serotonin is the thing that makes you fall asleep at night. So by just fixing the stomach bacteria, his serotonin levels went up, melatonin levels went up. Because of that, his sleep quality went way up. Those also directly connect eventually down to testosterone as well. So the testosterone levels, once we cleared up the cortisol, and testosterone shot way up because cortisol and testosterone tend to work antagonistically to each other. And cortisol is supposed to give you this giant rise to wake you up, and then it goes down at night, and that's why you go to sleep. And people who are highly stressed have really high cortisol at night, so they stay up at night.
Right.
So when we removed the stress from his system, in this case, it wasn't even a psychological stress. It wasn't an emotional stress. It wasn't a physical training stress. It was what we call a hidden stress. We removed that and everything cleared up. All we had to do was get that parasite out of there, which was a fairly quick fix, and everything cleared up. Testosterone tripled in a couple of months. No supplementation other than the gut stuff, and everything's gone. That's a specific example. So, like I don't want people to think like, oh, it's all my gut. It's all my gut.
Sure.
That's not always the case. We have a lot of other root causes, but that can happen.
Right. Yeah. Not only is Andy a doctor, a scientist, a sports training genius, he's also a detective. So, I mean, but does it feel like that sometimes, right? Okay, hey, we're going through and we're trying to solve this mystery that's going on, and it could be a million different things.
I literally use that in the initial paperwork, or people we do a very detailed lifestyle analysis. It's almost as important, and I would argue generally more important than the actual metrics we take from the body. And in that language, I tell them, if you do this poorly and to a low level of detail, it's like asking a detective to solve a murder crime, and you're just like, I think it was kind of over there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If you give me more clues, I can get very good at figuring out what's going on. Right. If you don't, I'm in the dark. That's awesome. That's what we use, detective. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, but one thing I did want to touch on before we wrap up here is training, strength training, resistance training, especially for the general population, because this is the thing that we work in an office building. This is the thing we hear the most is people are scared to strength train. A, they don't know what to do, but B, they think, I don't want to get big and bulky. And so can you just talk about the importance of resistance training for anybody and its relation to longevity and health over time? Yeah,
we got another hour.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of a Pandora's box of a question.
No, unfortunately I don't. But I mean, geez, the list is unending when it comes to general exercise. Maybe I'll hit you with this, because this is going to be part of my last kind of wrap-up piece. When it comes to the exercise portion, if you do the following things, you're going to generally have a very high quality of health, high quality of life. Depending on the person, you would make them more individualized, but this is the nodes. This is the things you want to shoot for. So you need to do something that requires you to move without stopping for at least 30 minutes. Call this cardio, call it whatever you want. I don't call it that, but if you want that to be swimming, if you want that to be cycling or rowing, I don't really care. No stopping, sustained output for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Very important. You need to do something that challenges close to a maximum heart rate. Okay, so this could be cycling class, could be spin class, could be, a CrossFit, could be circuit training, could be any number of things, intervals on the beach, whatever, but something that takes your heart up to a high level or close to high level. That's number 2. Number 3, something that challenges your muscles to work to a burn. Okay, because again, mostly strength training here. Could be body weight stuff, could be, body weight squats, could be walking lunges, could be planks. So every kind of muscle group needs to be worked to a pretty hard burn. Number 4, you have to do something that makes you produce high amounts of force. So something heavy, right? And you want to do the major movement patterns. So you want to do upper body press, upper body pull, lower body press, lower body pull, right? So you can press vertically, like above your head. You can press away from you, like a bench or a chest. You can do like a bent row, which is a horizontal pull, or a lat pull down, or a pull up, which is a vertical pull. Doesn't matter, right? And then you could do dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells. All that stuff is kind of noise, right? And then you need to do something. The final one is that requires you to move fast. And this is the one that folks that stop playing sports tend to forget.
Yeah.
We always say, as soon as you stop jumping, you start aging.
Okay.
So you got to do something that makes you move fast. And there's very specific reasons for that, for aging. We know scientifically that when you lose the fast twitch fibers, the ones that make you contract at these high velocities and high force, they don't come back. And you only activate them by doing something heavy. And you need these because things like foot speed, funny enough, but foot speed is one of the strongest predictors of things like a falling and breaking a hip with age. Because if you trip, you have to have the speed and power to get your foot out in front of you and catch yourself in the fall.
Interesting.
Right.
So your likelihood of going into assisted living homes goes up sharply when you start losing speed and power.
Oh.
We also see that the physical activity with aging goes down as soon as leg strength goes down. Because it now becomes like a 1-rep max squat to just stand up every time.
Right.
So if you look at the things that are the largest predictors of health, and this is not me, this is science. We're talking large studies of hundreds of thousands of people. What predicts mortality? And I like these studies because it's death, right? Who died, who didn't die.
Right.
Not like who had high blood pressure, who died. The things that pop up routinely are, number 1, VO2 max. So this is cardiovascular, right? This is heart rate. How much work can you do when your heart rate's really, really high? No question about it, right? Number 2, total amount of leg muscle. People who don't have muscle in their legs tend to die soon.
Wow.
Number 3, leg strength. Number 4, grip strength. And it's just because it's a surrogate of general strength.
Okay.
And number 5, total amount of muscle.
Total amount of muscle is one of them.
Those things here's the thing is they tend to kick the crap out of things like cholesterol, out of things like blood pressure, out of things like heart disease. If you look at predictors of death, those things will win every single time you're telling you who's going to die faster. Not even close.
Wow. Thank you for
even
that.
Diabetes,
Seriously.
even smoking.
Wow.
These ones lose out to like VO2 max and leg strength. They're very, very strong predictors of longevity.
Wow. I guess I didn't realize it was that. I mean, I
It's
knew
bad.
how
It's
important it was. I didn't know that context though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me finish the application stuff just so that they can leave home here with something. All those things I laid out, the long distance stuff, the to the burn, to the speed, those don't need to be in a single day, of course. You could split them up however you'd like. You could combine multiple into one session. You could do them, in any order throughout the week. Those things for general people, they don't matter that much. Just make your list and say, okay, what I tend to recommend people doing is just start, right? So today I'll do the burn thing and I'll do the intervals. Okay, that makes sense. Let's do like you just do a circuit with kettlebells and some other stuff. You probably get multiple of those. Check that box, 20-minute workout. Tomorrow I will do some speed work, maybe some jumps, and then I'll do some heavy lifting. Cool. Check those things off. And then the next day I'll do, whatever else is left, I'll do a long bike ride. Done. Got all that done in 3 workouts.
Right.
So I'm not talking like 2 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Right.
No. Just like try to think about throughout the week. I'll do this a lot of times when you're like, I just feel cooked today. Like I'm not about to go do some intervals. Like no chance. Like maybe I'll do an upper body lift.
Right.
Okay, maybe I can always convince myself to do some curls.
Me too.
Or I'll go ride the bike. We'll take an extra long walk today, and that'll be my 30 minutes sustained piece. So at least I got that, right?
Yeah.
And the next day you kind of back and say, okay, now I need to do my heavy lifting because I got this other piece in whatever it can be. So.
Right.
That's so good, man.
It is.
That lays it out to where anybody can understand it. That's the best answer I've ever heard to that question.
Eliminates a lot of the guilt as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got a plan, you eliminate that guilt, and at least you can follow, the simplicity of that.
Yeah. That's all it takes, folks. Like you just do that and you do things well. You're going to be fine.
Oh, I love it. I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up for this time. If you didn't get any value out of this one, I don't know. You're not breathing because that was awesome, man. Thank you so much. And you're so intelligent, and it's clear that you've done your homework, but you're able to explain it in such easy terms for dummies like us to be able to understand. So, man, this was awesome. We appreciate you so much. If people want to find you, where can people find you? Instagram, you got your own YouTube channel. Where else can people connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter are, of course, the easiest place for me to put out science stuff, and that's basically what I do. Mm-hmm. Twitter is, if you like the direct links to the studies and stuff, well, that's the easier spot to put them. I ain't changing my link in my bio on Instagram every 6 hours. Sorry.
Right.
My YouTube channel, though, it's all free. I try to take all of this stuff and all of the material I use for all my classes. It's all on YouTube free.
Love it.
Okay.
So my goal there, my mission is this basic exercise and health stuff. It's a big deal across the world, and I don't want money, access, ability to get into a classroom. I didn't have the prereqs. I don't think those should stand in the way of people understanding the very basics of nutrition, strength training from somebody that they can trust, right? At least by name. So I'll just continue to make those videos free. Just put them all out there, and that's all there. So you got hundreds of hours of some more basic, some more sciencey, but I try to put stuff out there, that's open access. So that's always there for free.
And we can speak to the YouTube channel. I mean, you've got 5-minute videos, and it's condensed and it's nice and easy to digest, and that's what we loved about your YouTube channel and your website.
I also got 3-hour videos too. So.
Yeah, you got both. You got something for everybody, which is awesome. So, man, we so much appreciate your insight. We appreciate you jumping on today. I know you're a busy man, so thank you so much for jumping on. This was awesome, man, and we really appreciate it.
And is there a way that Well, we could talk offline because I definitely want to reach out to you, Dr. Andy. I think there's something that I can build on, and I'm trying to find that. Look, it's never gonna be perfect, but I'm trying to find that quality of, as I age, I'm trying to find the quality of life. So I'll reach out on the backside here.
Yeah. Well, let's do that one offline.
Yep.
Yeah,
perfect.
for sure.
Awesome,
Doc, we
I
appreciate
ain't trying
it.
to find out what's in your gut right now, man.
Oh, dude. Why not? Just hold on. Well, thanks again, Doctor. We really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys.
All right.
Thanks, man.